Welcome back to The Explainer. Let's jump right in today. We are unpacking one of the most fascinating and honestly most consequential tensions of the modern tech revolution. On one side, we've got the absolute miracle of instant AI translation. The ability to connect billions of people across the globe in milliseconds is incredible. But on the other hand, we have human language. And language isn't just a basic exchange of ones and zeros. It is a dense, rich history, packed full of emotion, humor, taboos, and thousands of years of human evolution literally compressed into every single sentence we speak.
Okay, let's dive into this. When we talk about cultural nuance, what are we really talking about? Well, it's those subtle differences in meaning and appropriateness that come directly from shared historical experiences and social norms. Language is essentially a complex tapestry. It's built of idioms, honorifics, and deeply embedded context that machines, which are, at the end of the day, fundamentally just matching data patterns, profoundly struggle to grasp.
So the central question we have to ask today is, can AI ever truly capture cultural nuance? And look, this matters, because when AI gets this wrong, we aren't just dealing with a funny, awkward translation anymore. As we'll see, mistranslating nuance can severely damage international diplomacy. It can rapidly spread misinformation, and it can even contribute to the outright erasure of cultural identity. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to follow a structured journey today. We'll start with the promise and the flaw, look at what happens when AI gets culture wrong, dig into the hidden technical blind spots, weigh the real ethical consequences, and finally, look at some smart human-led solutions. Section 1. The promise and the flaw. Look, AI can instantly break down communication barriers, which is amazing for democratizing global knowledge. But its fundamental flaw? It completely lacks the human ability to actually understand the context those words live in. Moving on to Section 2. When AI gets culture wrong. Let's look at some actual real-world failures where algorithms just completely miss the mark and create systemic cultural misunderstandings. Now, what's really interesting about this example is how AI handles social hierarchy. Take the Japanese phrase, Tanaka-sama, otsukare-sama de gozaimasu. Translated correctly, it should be something highly respectful, like, esteemed Mr. Tanaka, thank you for your hard work. But in early AI translation, it just spat out, Tanaka, you're tired. It completely stripped away the honorifics and the formal verb endings. It took this highly respectful business greeting and basically turned it into a disrespectful, buddy-like observation. It entirely misses that in Japan, how you say something is often much, much more important than what you actually say. And then we have a totally different kind of cultural flaw, algorithmic gender bias. Turkish, for example, is a gender-neutral language. The phrase obir doktor, obir hemshire uses the exact same gender-neutral pronoun o for both sentences. But when translating that into English, AI systems have historically output, he is a doctor, she is a nurse. Why? Because the AI is trained on flawed, historically biased data. It just automatically injects gender stereotypes, assigning male pronouns to positions of authority and female pronouns to caregiving roles. Idioms are another massive blind spot. Take the Chinese expression pronounced mama hu. If you ask an AI for a literal translation, it'll just give you horse, horse, tiger, tiger. But the actual everyday meaning is careless or sloppy. See, the cultural context stems from an old Chinese story about a painter who carelessly painted something that looked half horse, half tiger. It carries this very specific cultural warning about doing things halfway. And the AI? It misses that nuance entirely. This brings us to a fascinating concept called context collapse. The Japanese phrase kuki o yomu literally translates to read the air, which is exactly what the AI will tell you it means. But to a human being, it really means read the room or act with social awareness. The AI completely misses the deep cultural concept of social harmony, known as wa, that is intrinsically tied to this phrase. It perfectly translates the vocabulary, sure, but it collapses the entire context. All right, Section 3, the hidden technical blind spots. Let's actually lift the hood on these translation models and see exactly why these systems fail so spectacularly at nuance. And this brilliantly illustrates our first major technical issue, training data bias. To put this into perspective, 60% of all internet content is in English. 60%. AI models are trained on massive datasets scraped from the web, which means they heavily skew toward formal Western English perspectives. Because of this massive imbalance, the AI learns a kind of neutral, homogenized language that doesn't actually exist anywhere in the real spoken world. You really see this limitation with untranslatable words. We're talking about words like the Portuguese saudade, which is a deep emotional longing, or the Scottish tartle, that specific awkward hesitation when you're introducing someone and realize you've completely forgotten their name. AI cannot invent cultural understanding for these unique emotional experiences. It is simply pattern matching. If the concept doesn't natively exist in the target culture's data, the AI just hits a brick wall.
Section 4, the real ethical consequences. We need to shift gears a bit here, because this brings us to the human cost. And this goes way beyond awkward restaurant menu translations, straight into the realm of culturally erasure and dangerous power dynamics.
The truth is, translation is never politically neutral. When dealing with historical or political terminology, AI is absolutely forced to make choices. For instance, regarding events in the early 20th century, a system might output the Turkish government's terminology, 1915 events, or it might use the international historical consensus, Armenian genocide. Similarly, an AI has to choose how to frame regions like Taiwan based on competing global perspectives. The crucial point here is that AI makes these heavy, deeply political choices based purely on opaque dataset sizes. It's essentially letting the sheer volume of data decide historical narratives without any ethical framework whatsoever.
Then there's the massive issue of cultural homogenization. A staggering 40% of the world's population lacks access to education in their native language. Think about that for a second. When AI flattens unique indigenous perspectives and ancient ecological knowledge into dominant colonial languages like English or Spanish, it actively contributes to a dangerous loss of culture. It subtly enforces this idea that cultures outside the dominant paradigm simply don't matter.
And you have to consider privacy too. Check out this quote directly from the Google Translate Terms of Service. When you translate a confidential business email, sensitive medical documents, or legal data, you are handing that information over to train future models. Most users have absolutely no idea they are providing the sensitive data without true informed consent. Ultimately, all of this creates what experts call the illusion of understanding. Reading a machine-translated text tricks our brains into thinking we fully grasp the emotional tone, the intent, and the relationship dynamics of the speaker. This false confidence is an incredibly insidious ethical problem because it makes us totally blind to the cultural realities we are completely missing.
Let's move to Section 5, smart tools and human solutions. Let's bridge this gap and see how this builds into actionable strategies you can actually use to navigate all of this effectively.
The absolute industry ideal right now is a hybrid AI and human approach. This is brilliantly utilized by enterprise platforms like Unbabel. Here's how it works. You start with an AI draft, just for the speed. Then a human steps in to refine it. Next comes a cultural check by a specialized consultant. And finally, a native speaker validates the natural flow. You are essentially combining the brute force speed of a machine with the contextual, empathetic nuance of a human being.
It's also really important to know that not all translation tools are created equal. If you're doing European business and really need to preserve a formal tone, DeepL is absolutely your go-to. If you're navigating the complex honorifics of East Asian languages, Papago is best in class. For professional team localization, Lokalise is the industry standard. And for quick, universal, everyday translation across dozens of languages, Google Translate still remains a pretty great utility tool.
Regardless of the tool you pick, there are best practices you should absolutely always follow. The biggest one, manually inject context into your source text. If you want a formal translation, literally type something like, "Dear Mr. Schmidt" at the very beginning of your prompt. It forces the AI into an appropriate formal tone. Always use multiple tools to compare outputs, back-translate to check for accuracy, and remember, for high-stakes legal or medical documents, for sure always hire a human.
Which leaves us with one final provocative question. Will humans and AI coexist to bridge cultures, or will technology erase what makes us unique? Technology obviously has immense power to help us navigate our differences, but we have to be vigilant to ensure it doesn't flatten humanity into a single, homogenized voice. Understanding the limits of AI is the very first step in protecting the beautiful, messy nuance of human culture. Thanks so much for learning with me today on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.